All right, so sans kitty. I am all alone. No feline to pet and get bitten by. Right here, invisible feline. I love you so much. Anyway, let me just bring to a close what I'd begun talking about last night, or the night before last, before I got interrupted by the pray for Russia, or consecrating Russia to the Sacred Heart of Mary stuff. Let me talk a little bit more about what happened, what I think might have happened with the alt-right. Yes, like I was saying last time, yes, we were attacked by the media, by the stupid, lying media who misrepresented us at every turn. And then there was Charlottesville. And what happened at Charlottesville was the exact opposite of how it was reported. As far as who were the violent parties and who was the wronged parties. It was just ridiculous. It was like opposite day, the way that things got reported. But I've gone into that many, many times before. I've talked about the police having the stand down order. I've talked about how the Antifa were throwing things at the people who were there for the to gather at the statue. The Unite the Right attendees, and how all hell broke loose. And there was video of the park, not the park ranger, but somebody from the state, I guess, coming out with a megaphone, ordering us to disperse. And then these goons come marching up in their gear, their riot cop gear, knocking us over. Spray. I got hit with pepper spray. It was dramatic, and much as I wish that footage were still around, I'm actually kind of glad that it isn't, because I just as soon turn that page. What I gathered afterwards, with the aftermath of everything that took place there, was that the truth didn't matter. It didn't matter that that everything that happened was the exact opposite of what the lying press said happened. It didn't matter that the people who were there representing the alt-right or whatever were the ones who were not prevented to speak and were forced to leave through a hostile crowd who was already violent, and the truth just didn't matter. It didn't matter, and people were going to think about me what they were going to think about me. I got a couple of angry, hostile emails, or I was still on Facebook at the time, so I got some, a couple of nasty messages from people who had sort of been my friends before, but not like, I don't know, not really, just people that I sort of knew online. But the worst part of it was just how, certain members of my family responded, but I'm not going to elaborate on that. I want to turn the page there, but you can find all the gory details elsewhere if you want. Don't mean to blue ball anybody with with anything like that. I don't mean to hold something juicy up in front of your face and then just toss it over my shoulder and say, forget it. You're not getting it, doggy. Because that's all available. You can the best way to hear about all that stuff is to listen to my interview with Nama Cates. I go into a lot of intense detail there about it all. But anyhow, after Charlottesville, I mean, Charlottesville was, I mean, it was the culminating blow, I guess. And I mean, again, I wouldn't say that I would defend everybody who got categorized as alt-right. I wouldn't defend their methods. I wouldn't defend their rhetoric. I wouldn't defend their, even their animating principles, because you know, I didn't necessarily have a lot in common with with all of them. Um, there were several that I would have flatly disagreed with on certain animating principles. Uh, I was never a Daily Stormer kind of person. I just wasn't. I didn't believe in that stuff at all. Never did. But when we did stuff with our podcast with Richard Spencer and Colin Liddell, on the old site, none of it was Stormfront-esque. None of it was Daily Stormer-esque at all. So I never felt that like that was me, but of course they and I were in the same boat, and I was okay with being in the boat with them. It's just because we were up against the same despicable juggernaut of lies. And that may not be enough for some people. For some people, it's just like, you are the company that you keep, and if you ever associate yourself with anybody else, then you're responsible for everything that they believe and everything that they say. But I don't believe that for a minute. I associate with whom I please. Doesn't mean that I, for a second, that I agree with them on anything or on everything or even on anything necessarily. But you make tactical alliances, and sometimes you just find yourself in the same boat with other people. It's funny, you never, somebody who's a liberal but not a communist who finds himself fighting on the same side as communists. You never hear people say, "Well, you're just as bad as the communists." It's not that you never hear it, but you rarely hear it on that side of things. But if you're on the right, if you're a conservative, if you're a traditionalist, and some of the people who you find yourself fighting on the same side with could be called fascists, then it's like, oh well, you're just like them because you're not drawing enough of a distinction between yourself and them. I mean, it's just double standards galore, but that's par for the course, isn't it? Anyhow, there's a lot to complain about. There's a lot of legitimately complain about the way in which we as a group were treated. But what we can't blame on the Lucan Press is the way that so many of the people who called themselves alt-right, who affiliated as alt-right, the way that so many of them behaved, the kind of feuds that would break out, just these silly, petty, pissant kind of, I don't know, suddenly X is arguing with Y is arguing with Z, someone wants to to be the leader and someone else is resentful, and I don't know. There were just every time back in like 2017, 2018, around that time. Um, maybe it was a little bit earlier than that, because I don't know if at 2018 maybe it had just already frayed so much that it wasn't really a thing anymore. It's kind of hard for me to place it properly. Um, but let's just say that for the time when it was in the spotlight, and when alt-right was not just a term for some obscure corner of the internet that nobody really knew a whole lot about, um, and when it became something that the media jumped on because Hillary Clinton mentioned it in a speech, and because it became just something that they talked about on MSNBC or wherever, and it became something that you know, like cowardly so-called conservatives had to say, well, I distance myself from this. The Mitt Romneys, the John McCain types, it's saying they stood with the Antifa because it was anti-fascists who stormed the beaches at Normandy. No, it wasn't the fucking Antifa who stormed the beaches at Normandy, but that they were just posing and posturing, and it was pretty nauseating. Um, but anyway, all of that aside, all of the in invective that I feel towards people like so much of the press and so much of the political establishment, if not the entirety of it, nearly. Ultimately, what it boils down to is the alt right just kind of destroyed itself because of egos, because of petty feuds, because I don't know. I guess that you get enough guys together, and it sort of becomes this, like, it's okay. A big thing, like a buzzword, was hierarchy. Like we don't believe in equality. We believe in hierarchy. This was something that a lot of guys would say, who are in the alt-rightosphere. Well, people who believe in hierarchy, who talk about their belief in hierarchy, most of the time, what they mean is they think of themselves as the ones who should be on the top of that hierarchy. So it's not that I believe in, obviously there's no equality in nature, except what I believe, that we are all equal in the eyes of God, and being sons and daughters of the Most High. But that's just my Exian orientation. But obviously, there are differences in intelligence, differences in ability amongst groups as well as amongst individuals. Uh, no one would, no one in their right mind would deny that, even though a lot of people are denying it, which shows that there's a lot of people not in their right minds, or it's cool, it's fashionable not to be in your right mind about these kinds of things. But still, there's something about just having this whole wanting to be the king of the hill, and wanting to push everybody else off, and just wanting to flex your muscles, and be recognized as the one on top, the Führer principle, the Führer principle. I think is how you say it in Auf Deutsch. Um, there's something about that that's just so. I mean, I never was interested in. I just never was interested in that, but I found myself in the midst of it. Sometimes, caught in the crossfire, And I suppose it had to eventually happen that when things like that, when people set up camp against one another, you end up getting purged just because you are, and again, without mentioning any names, just because you're too close to one person, or you won't distance yourself from one person, uh, um, or you won't. I don't know. You don't want to take a side, so therefore you get lumped in with whoever whoever feels more more prone to be to be purge inclined. so so I got I was never like I was like I always just thought of it as a place to share ideas that were outside of what people are allowed to say. A place for dangerous ideas, and I think that's a good thing. I have no I feel no need to apologize for anything that I said or did that I can think of, as far as that goes. But I guess what brought all this up to mind for me, just to bring this all to a close, was I finally ended up getting purged by somebody who had sort of been with me all along, sort of, even though we didn't necessarily believe the same things. But then, because I wasn't believing the same things that he was, or going in the direction that he was wanting to go, then that you know, I it it happened. I got kicked out again. I got kicked out of yet another club, within the club, within this this clique. Let us just say. And that was and this happened more recently, and I'm not mentioning any names, but that was just the final, like, to me, it was just like, man, we've got these people over here behaving like total asses. You've got this event over here where this embarrassing fight took place. You have these people going after these people, this faction going after this faction, and you know, like nobody wanted to just say, uh, "Look, guys, let's stick together." In spite of our differences, we really should stick together because um, if we don't if we don't stand up for each other, who will? It could have been it could have been a beautiful thing, but it could have been something, a band of brothers standing up against a hostile world. But it just became this silly playground fight amongst people who somehow thought that they were fighting for turf, uh, that who somehow thought that they were on the path to power, and never anywhere near the the corridors of power, and I'd never wanted to be. I wanted to be heard. I wanted to be read. I wanted to be listened to. But I never wanted to rule. I despise most of those who rule, most of those who desire to rule. So that's just me. Anyway, I guess that's kind of ending on a sour note, but so it goes. That's my assessment of why the alt-right died. Thanks for listening, rather, because there wasn't much to watch.